I went on a scouting trip to Medellin, Colombia 2 times, and I'm going to discuss with you all today the reasons why I have decided against it. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Marquita. I am currently on a solo, slow travel experience. Right now, I am canvassing different cities, different countries, different regions in order for me to decide what is the next best place for me to call home. I am also a spiritual coach, an author, and the host of the Alchemy Soul podcast. So if you're interested in learning more about me and the work that I do, please be sure to check the description for more details. So let's just get right into it, guys. I went to Medellin, Colombia twice. The first time that I went to Colombia was in 2023. When I went to that country, I went there solo. It was really only my second time traveling solo, and this was within a like 6 month period. The first time I went to Thailand, the second time I went to Medellin, Colombia. When I arrived to Medellin, Colombia, I remember taking a taxi, right? I didn't know anything, right? I just was like, let me go somewhere. I heard good things. I did research online, and really, the reason why you have to do canvassing trips and the reason why you should go on foot and experience a place yourself, but before deciding to get a visa and move there, is because you won't really know if a place is for you until you are on the ground, right? So, of course, I knew all of these positive things about Medellin, Colombia. One of them being like the great weather, the affordability, the culture. It's very lively, very vibrant, and all of these wonderful things that come with being inside the culture. I'm going to give this, little warning, whatever you want to call it. This is my personal experience. These are my personal reasons. Although I'm sure people can relate to some of the things that I say, please be sure to understand that I am not speaking down on the culture. Please understand that I am not speaking down on the culture. I love Colombian culture. I am only here to discuss with you why I decided against Medellin, right? So, 2023, I got there, landed, got me a taxi. Didn't know that it would be better to get a Uber instead of a taxi. So I got the taxi, completely trusting, right? I feel like one thing that I'm learning as I am, navigating different countries is that we have a tendency to just fall into trust because we don't have another choice, right? So I got a taxi. He took me to where I needed to be. Probably charged me way more, but I didn't know because I'm new to a country and I didn't really do that much in depth research on whether I should take a taxi or Uber or whatever. Doesn't matter. I got to where I needed to be safely. Okay. And so I remember the next morning, waking up to somebody playing like the harmonica or like some kind of instrument that was very loud and very noisy and very like Colombian, right? Very Colombian. And I appreciated it. Right. I was like, oh, this is different. Okay. So this is gonna be my morning, wake up call. Like, this is pretty cool. I thought that was, pretty great. In 2023, I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I didn't really connect with a lot of community, although I knew that they were there. I did feel safe. And then one of the reasons why I did feel safe is because nobody could tell that I wasn't Colombian until I opened my mouth to speak, right? And that is one thing that can kind of help someone who is a person of color feel safe, right? Um, so I was like, okay, I like it. I like it here. So I started to, I started to look at different apartments. I started to look at different neighborhoods and, kind of compare and contrast different things. I I liked it. I liked it enough, right? I liked it enough to have gone back. But what happened in 2023, and the reason why it's just very interesting to me is because in 2023, they broke into my Airbnb while I was there. And so that was a very traumatic experience, right? Because now I'm experiencing a home invasion and I'm actually in the home. Like, and like, although I was safe and I was able to scare the kids off, the boys, the men, I was able to scare them off. It's still like an experience of, dang, like, okay, now I got to be on guard, And I was so determined at that time to not develop PTSD based off of that experience, because I knew that I was going to want to continue to travel. So that happened. But I liked it. I was like, I really like it. Like, it's still high on the priority list. So this time around, when I was, deciding that I wanted to leave the country again, I put it back at the top of the list. Actually, it wasn't at the top of the list. Puerto Vallarta, Mexico was at the top of the list. But I decided against going because I was like, well, I know Colombia, like I know the neighborhoods, it's kind of familiar. So I think I'll be good. I'll be safe, I'll be comfortable, right? So I get to Colombia this time around, and it was a complete disaster, right? You can go back through some of my videos that I created a few weeks ago, but long story short, because I'm not going to go through the whole story all over again, but long story short is I had a lot of issues with being locked out. I had a lot of issues with my Airbnb host. I had a lot of issues inside of the home. They ended up losing my laundry, like, and losing off all of my clothes. I just had a lot of things stacked against me. They pickpocketed me, and I was always like hyper vigilant, always like clutching my phone and clutching my bag towards me, trying to be strategic on where I put my money in my bag so they won't pickpocket me again. And so I had a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of hypervigilance. And the reason why I have decided against it is because of that, right? If we want to look at everything as a whole, the reason why I decided against Medellin is because of that hypervigilance, of that me not feeling safe, right? I'm leaving America to a certain extent for safety, right? As a Black woman, as a solo Black woman, I want to be safe. Walking down the street, I want to be safe. And with everything, I want to be able to have my phone out if I want to, take some pictures as a tourist, and not feel that I have to always have it tucked away somewhere because somebody is going to take it. One thing that I want to say, you know, because you'll get people be like, "Well, that happens everywhere." I'm from Chicago. I know it happens everywhere. I lived in Atlanta for 10 plus years. I know that it happens everywhere. It has never personally happened to me or anyone that I have personally known, but I'm sure it happens, right? In any big city. What I don't like about Medellin in particular, and you could really even say Colombian culture as a whole, is that they're not just stealing from foreigners, right? They steal from each other. Like, it happens to Colombians as well. And I would look at different comments on people's posts on Facebook, and oh, it's just a culture. Oh, that's what just happens. Like, and so we have normalized, or they have normalized this stealing as a part of their culture, and I I just don't. It just doesn't sit right with me, right? Nobody wants to be in a situation where they are frantic and trying to figure things out in a foreign country. I do think that it's important to have a second phone. I do think it is important to have everything backed up and to have you know multiple cards and multiple ways to access money, and like, you have to have your things in order. However, nobody wants to be put in a position, right? And so I feel that I didn't like it because it has been normalized. It has been normalized. The stealing has been normalized. Everybody wears backpacks, and they good quality backpacks, like really nice quality backpacks with locks and everything. And the reason why is because this is a culture where you just know somebody can steal your things. So that's one of the reasons, right? Another reason why I decided against it is because the one thing that I kind of fell in love with in the beginning became overstimulating, in time. And so this is a very, like I said, a very lively, a very vibrant and culture, like celebratory culture. Like they like to celebrate a lot, and it's always a parade. And for me, it's just a little overstimulating, right? Because there's always noise all the time, everywhere. It is never really quiet unless it's like in the middle of the night. And so I fell in love with that in the beginning in 2023, but I'm a different person in 2026, right? So it became very overstimulating. The motorcycles, so many motorcycles everywhere, and it's so freaking loud. People playing music, or people with a harmonica, or with their music instruments, and it's just a very loud place. I went to Bogota, and I didn't have the same experience that I had in Medellin. It was actually really quiet. And it's interesting because Bogota is huge, right? Like that's a huge city. But I think because it is like more spread out, because it is so big, whereas Medellin sits in a valley, so everything is like on top of each other. And I don't like that either. Like I don't like being like everybody is on top of each other. So that's one of my reasons. That I decided and the last reason that I decided against Medellin is so it's the safety, the loud, overstimulating, and there was another reason. And the third reason why I decided against Medellin Colombia is that things are not as affordable as you think they are. When you are coming in as a foreigner, of course, we have our things, we have our wants, we have our needs. However, the Colombian peso against the US dollar is getting worse. You know what I mean? And so I experienced it over the time that I was there. I was spending more and more money because the Colombian peso is getting weaker, or because the US dollar is getting weaker against the Colombian peso. And so while my only reason for, moving abroad, while my reasoning for moving abroad is not solely based on finding an affordable place, that is a part of it, right? Like that is a factor. And if I'm going to pay, for a place, which I don't mind paying for, a quality neighborhood that is quiet and that's residential and that, is nice and modern, I'll pay for that. However, if I'm going to pay for it, it needs to be what I want it to be, right? It needs to be safe. I need to be able to walk down the street at night. I need to be able to have my phone out and be a tourist if I want to be a tourist. You know what I mean? And so I'm just like, if I'm going to pay US prices in Medellin, Colombia, you better believe that I need to have everything that I want on my list. And so I decided to leave. I decided to leave because of that. I would say that I will probably never be back to Medellin, Colombia. I will probably never be back for those reasons. But I really like Bogota. I really like Bogota. And there are some other places inside of Colombia that I would actually like to visit. And so it's not that it's not that Colombia is off the list. It's that Medellin, that city in particular, is off the list for me. And so, yeah, I say all of these things just to share my personal experience. I do think that everybody should go for themselves if they are considering it, and, just be aware of your surroundings, be aware of where you place things, and if you can live with that, like we all know that when it comes to moving abroad, there are going to be some trade offs, right? And if you're okay with those things, because clearly there are plenty of people that have gone there that are okay with the fact that this is a culture that steals, okay, like go in, be aware, be hyper vigilant, you know, be cautious of just where you place things, and you'll be fine. Um, that's all I got. That's all I got as it relates to that. If you all have any questions, please be sure to leave them below. And if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions, please be sure to leave them below. I am open to all feedback, all suggestions. And again, this is my personal experience. If you are interested in following along my journey, please be sure to subscribe. I'll be back here tomorrow. Peace, love, and light, beautiful souls.